All right, folks, Vitek here from Wani, and with us today we have Swedish gentleman, Mr. Daniel Gildenlöw of Pain of Salvation. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking.
And after a long, long time, 5 years in the making, Pain of Salvation are back with In the Passing Light of Day. And I know, you have been, recovering during this period. So how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, Daniel is is back in action for sure. After spending like half a year in the hospital and really having to start over from scratch, at least that's what it felt like. I just, I was surprised at just to see how quickly the body could bounce back from that, and so I just, I thought, why not just keep the pace, and I started doing parkour, and I started doing capoeira, and I don't know, I'm in a better shape than I ever was in my life. So I guess that's the golden part of it, right?
Absolutely. That's really good to hear. You've already given your fans a song and a music video, obviously meaningless. So, how's the response been so far?
It's been great. Great response for the music and for the video, and we're having a new second video coming up just before Christmas, and it's going to be interesting to see what people think about that. And I mean, I've been doing interviews, so I can't even count how many interviews by now, and the response in the interviews have been great as well, which is even more interesting because the most of the journalists have actually heard the entire album and
Right.
not just the video.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right because this album is extremely honest. I mean, brutally honest, and a very personal album, which is pretty much clear. And you as a person have been very transparent with your fans. I mean, is it something
Yeah.
which you, let's say, you feel it's the artistic integrity in you, or do you feel like therapeutic, or is it just a need to be real, to share what you feel in life with your audience?
I think it's probably a combination of everything, but I mean, I only have to go to myself to see that I usually enjoy, intimate and honest works of art better than, I don't know, more entertaining ones. It's just a matter of, digging where you stand, I guess. And if you do whatever comes naturally to you and what feels closest to your heart, you're bound to end up with something that is a bit more true and honest and intimate. And I usually enjoy that myself when other artists do that. So to me, it just feels more natural. It comes with a higher cost, with your own emotional investments and your integrity. But on the other hand, whatever you do will be so much better, and I think most people who are in it for, I don't know, for the creative part of it will tend to that product, to whatever extent, possible.
Absolutely, and this album has that, possibly, even I was discussing with my team member as well, it has a potential to help a lot of people who are having a hard time in life. I mean, even
Yeah.
when we were listening to this record, I mean, one of my friends is having a very hard time, and in fact, he's reviewing the record, and he was telling me, "You gotta tell Daniel that he's saving my life right now."
That's wonderful to hear, and I've actually had that a few times when we've been on tour. Ever since the second album, or around the second album, almost at every tour, people will come up to me and say something similar, and I mean that's just that it's an amazing thing to know that you have actually touched and moved and helped people to that extent.
Sure.
I had that feeling, in the beginning with the first albums, because I tend to write what I, care about and what troubles me in life. So that means the topics will, tend to be a bit gloomy.
Right, right.
And I felt, that this might be, I don't know, like a downer for people, but it turns out that most people who are having a troublesome situation, they will be able to relate to this and will be helped more by this than by Go Happy album with that says that life is perky, because even though life maybe perky. Once you're in that dark place, you can't relate to that really.
True, absolutely right. And here you are with an album that is, has got an aggression in it. I mean, you're coming back to the roots sort of an album. It is returned to the older sound, and obviously there's a good balance of the aggression and the softer parts as well, and they seem to merge really well on this album. So was it like in the cards before the illness, or did the story kind of require a heavier concept album?
The direction was something that I was leaning towards already in the making of the second Road Salt album. I felt I wanted to get back to something heavier, and I mean that sort of blend between the intimate and vulnerable lyrical concept and the very straightforward, aggressive and very I don't know, like in your face kind of music. Is a trademark of Penis Salvation, and maybe especially of myself as a musician and composer. But in retrospective, because things were delayed because of so many things, and in the end, it was a much longer journey. Me being in the hospital and having to go through physical rehab, of course, was not entirely according to original plan. Right. And but in retrospective now, I think the album became so much stronger from this, from all of these delays. Because you build up an appetite and a hunger. Right. So once you get back and you actually can do this album that you've had in your system for such a long time, you really start doing it with a vengeance. But also, of course, as you already mentioned, because of the concept, that, of course, would not have happened. I don't know what the album would have been about had I not gone through this entire hospital period. And I think it's a perfect match in so many ways. Even though I initially thought it was not a concept, my hospital stay was not concept material, basically because I had so many fans who were supporting me during my stay in the hospital, and again I have to thank them all for that, because I cannot express how important that was to me, probably much more than they would ever understand. But some of them suggested, you can use this for concepts, probably trying to motivate me or support me, but lying there in this very unexotic environment in my extremely unsexy hospital clothes, it just seems so far from anything that could be turned into a concept. And I was laughing to myself reading these things and going like a metal concept album about flesh-eating bacteria. I don't see that happening. But once I sat down and started writing, I noticed that was exactly what came up. That was.
Did this kind of make it more difficult for you, because it's a very personal nature of the album and the story? So was the writing kind of very difficult, or it came out easier?
I think to the larger extent it's easier that way, because you can go with the flow in a way. I mean, you're so connected to what you're writing about. You can just it's a source that it's so easily to tap from. On the other hand, of course, you have to, invest more of yourself, and it becomes heavy. And it's the same problem that I had a little bit with Remedy Lane too. Like when you deal with heavy concepts that have or maybe are still, taking a heavy toll on you. The thing is, you have to sort of like put yourself back in that position all the time instead of being able to sort of like leave it. I still have that, like playing Remedy Lane songs live is, you have to, because I want to be 100% committed to the lyrics I'm singing on stage. So you end up having to put yourself in those sort of like difficult positions, those difficult times again every time you do it. But on the other hand, it's also a way of forming a new kind of relationship to the topics, and I guess it's probably also a bit therapeutic in that sense.
Indeed, because the spiritual nature of it is still there. In fact, let me be honest with you here. I feel it's a more worthy follow up to the perfect element, even though
Yeah.
part two was Karsic. The vibe is very similar here, and also the spiritual link with this album and the perfect element. And I don't know, was it sort of an intentional, or maybe I'm thinking too much?
No, I mean, I probably related it more to the Remedy Lane album. There are even some small music references in there for the for the one who wants to dig a little bit.
Right.
So I was thinking more of Remedy Lane than the Perfect Element, but I think both of those albums are very they're fairly similar in style. Maybe the two most similar albums, except for the Road Salt, but that was written as a double album to start with, so that's not so strange. But yeah, so I actually once I started, since Remedy Lane is so closely connected to me, and also based on it's autobiographical in the same sense that this is.
Right.
I did consider for a while to make this Remedy Lane Part 2, but we decided against it for a few different reasons. First of all, we wanted this album to stand on its own legs because it just felt like too strong to be Part 2 of something in a way, and also we just didn't want to start yet another saga, of albums, because we're having the question so often, like when. Well, we still have the question: when is the Perfect Element Part 2 going to come out? And then previously we always had that question. It's we can split, but every once in a while you get the when is Part 3 coming out, and sometimes when is Part 2 coming out. So there's a little bit of a little bit more variety there right now than it used to be. But still, it's sort of you don't want to start that with yet another album.
Yeah, that's right. And yourself and Ragnar, you have such a powerful combination here with respect to your voice. I mean, it literally shakes the soul of a listener. How do you guys plan your parts on the record, or let's say on an album like this, where I heard some beautiful melodies from you, from Ragnar as well?
I don't think we planned it so much as we just did what came natural. Some parts he had written, and he had, like, for the on a Tuesday he already had that's actually the demo vocals that's still in there for that soft part, because we for a few sections of the album we just realized, even before even trying to re-record something in the proper studio, we just felt that this was done in a very rudimentary way, and there's so many ways it could be improved from a technical point of view, but the delivery is just so honest and real that you don't want to change it, really. I think the most fun example of this was actually the main guitar, the clean guitar for the title track, which is a very large part of the song. That was really just rudimentary recorded. I was going to Norway because Ragnar lives in Norway and I live in Sweden, and we were sort of like, since both of us have families and kids, we try to go, like, every second time Sweden and every second time Norway. So I was going to Norway for a week, where we were in the stage where we were getting the demos down, and we were working with the structure and everything. And just as I was leaving home, I realized that my regular 7-string guitar was not at home. It was with my guitar tech somewhere. So I just, like, tried to find I needed a 7-string. I knew that. So and I found the only 7-string I had at home was my old Ibanez guitar that I bought for the 2005 tour. That was the first tour when I needed a 7-string, and I just went into the local music store in panic, going like, "What's the cheapest 7-string you have? Do you have it in black?" Those were my two questions, and I had this black Ibanez 7-string, and I hadn't been playing it for so many years, and it was not adjusted at all. But that was the only one I found, so I took that with me, and we got to his home studio. I mean, it's a very rudimentary home studio with basically some preamps, a computer, not a real guitar amp. He had this sort of like an 8-inch speaker, a combo that looks like something that you would, I don't know, you can put it in your kitchen drawer, It was the only thing he had, and then like just picking a microphone, putting it up, and I played it on this guitar that was so badly adjusted that we had to re-record a few of the chords because you could only basically tune it to be somewhat in tune, but the next chord would be terribly out of tune. So we just did that to get an idea for how the song would be. Wow. And in the end, that is the guitar that we had, and it ended up on the album. We re-recorded it, and we tried so many ways, and it sounded better in so many ways, but it just didn't have this, whatever the original one has, in the midst of all those off notes and, mistakes and everything. That was the one,
Absolutely. That's really good to hear, Daniel. But you were talking about the final track. Now that's where I want to put the next interest on.
All right.
The sum of the final lyrics in the end, and I quote, "I wish I could stay," which seems to kind of imply that the character is going to die, which, like you said, it's strictly autobiographical. So what is the reason here? Is this something like, I'm just trying to understand, because as I read that, and it's a very personal record, I started thinking it seems to be a strictly autobiographical. So where is it heading to from here?
Well, first of all, you don't know where I'm calling from, right? No, the thing is, it's not so much a matter of knowing that you're going to die as it is knowing that there's a potential risk of dying. So, to me, that is what the album is about in many ways. It's that first day in the hospital when you go from, first just going into the hospital because you have this annoying pain that's just like becoming terrible by the hour. But you don't really think that the first thing you think is always that you're going to go there, you're going to sit and wait for a way too long time, and they're going to look at something, they're going to find some like ridiculous thing, and they're going to send you home, and you're going to feel like that was a waste of an afternoon. I could have just stayed at home, and I would have been able to write it out until tomorrow or whatever. But it actually is something, and it turns out to be something really bad and something really quick and aggressive. That's the scary thing with the flesh-eating bacteria or necrotizing fasciitis, that you can go from perfectly healthy, to just as perfectly dead in just 2 or 3 days, unless you can stop it. And you realize during that first day in the hospital that they're trying and they keep failing. Towards the end of the first day, I think I had 6 different types of antibiotics running through my system, and they would just like try different things. And you notice as you're lying in that bed, basically only focusing on trying to find a mental balance to endure the pain, but you still can't help noticing that you're working your way up the food chain of doctors. Right. So, more and more important doctors are coming into the room, and that's not a good sign. Regardless of how much they smile and say that it's going to be okay, you realize that there's an increasing amount of worry behind their smiles. Right. And so somewhere in that in that tipping point where it pivots from having been this annoying and painful experience that you go like, this is going to be a hard thing to go through, and then you come to that point where you start going, well, maybe it's, maybe I won't get through it. You have to start considering that option. That, if they can't stop it within, the next day now, there's a very high, chance that I won't make it. Or if I make it, it's going to be in a shape that I have no idea about. I read afterwards that there was a woman in Sweden who got the same thing at almost the same time, and there was an article of her in a magazine, like 1.5 years after I came out, or 1 year after I came out, and she ended up, they couldn't stop it in time, and once it gets into your bloodstream, it can just go everywhere, and it gets really difficult to stop. So she woke up after having been put under for 2 months. She woke up with no legs, no arms, and half her face gone.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and I read the statistics afterwards that in this entire region of Sweden where I come from, there's only between 0 and 2 people, so that means one basically a year, that gets this, and somewhere around 40 or 50% die. So it's not the figures are not that good.
Right, more power to you that you made it. You got fans out there who are loving it, and I admire, I respect, that you fought the battle, and here you are coming up with probably one of the best records of your career. And man, you did a wonderful job. I'm sure fans are gonna love this, and to see you back in action on tour. You're heading to Europe in Feb and March, and that would be phenomenal to see you churning out the same old Pain of Salvation essence to your fans.
Oh, that's what I'm hoping too. I mean, I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Daniel, thanks a lot, man. This is the first time I'm having a chat with you, and the first and the only time I saw you was when you came to India at IIT Madras.
Oh, yeah. Right. That was nice.
So I'm right now in Bangalore. I'm right now in Bangalore, India, and that was the first time my experience with Pain of Salvation, and since then I've been sold. So
cool. And when people ask me, like, because they always ask, so what's the nicest, the coolest place? What's the most different? I always ending up saying India, because that was, to me, that was a really like a magical trip going to India, and I can't say how much I would want to come back. So I really hope that that's going to happen. That would be so great.
Awesome, man. So if you had to sum up the album in a sentence, I know it gets difficult and it's a worst question, but if you had to do it to sum up the album, in the passing light of day in a sentence, what would you say?
Wow. It's a true and uncompromising album of severe brutality and, what's the word I'm looking for? Something with beautiful. Fragility, maybe?
Fragility.
Intimacy, something like that.
Perfect.
That's the sentence, right?
Perfect.
Has all the pipes.
Indeed, man. Thanks, Daniel, a lot. You have a wonderful evening, and I'm definitely catch you on road soon. Okay?
Thank you very much, and nice talking to you. It was a pleasure.
Same here, buddy. Take care of yourself.
Okay. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.